have two questions to ask you. The first, you spoke very eloquently about freeing the peoples backed by what you termed Western-backed dictatorships from the oppression pushed upon them. You vocally supported the re-election of a man in Venezuela named Hugo Chavez, who frequently shuts down opposition television stations, frequently jails any journalist who criticizes him, specifically when Globovision covered prison riots, which Venezuelan prison governors brutally suppressed prisoners. That television station was immediately shut down. So where is the freedom of expression and freedom of dissent for Venezuelan opposition leaders, especially considering Mr. Capriles was never given any television coverage. He was not allowed the oil subsidies that Chavez used to fund his election campaign. And a second question, to clarify this man's point, you were on the right stuff. Iran executed a 16 and a 17-year-old boy, widely acknowledged by human rights activists, for being gay, live on television, publicly broadcasted at executions. You said, don't worry, the Iranian government has told me they are paedophiles.
Did I really say that?
Yeah, yes, you
did.
Did
I really
on
say
the right
that?
stuff. So
did I
the
really
concern. So what my point is. My point is.
Pause for a second,
yes.
And then tell the audience if I really said
yes.
that.
You said.
Don't worry.
Yes, you said.
You just quoted me.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yeah, the Iranian government has said these men are paedophiles, so should not be. So they were not executed for being
say that?
gay. Yes. Secondly, I think to clarify his point, how should LGBT people feel about you being elected, specifically your position on the equal marriage bill as well? Thank you.
Well, I'm in favour of the equal marriage bill. I was in favour of the equalisation of the age of consent when 3/4 of the parliament voted against it. That's what I got the Stonewall Award for. I mean, I know that a little knowledge is dangerous. Your problem is you've got a little knowledge about everything about which you have spoken. You have utterly distorted. You have utterly distorted my record on gay rights. You have utterly distorted what I said on the right stuff, as a moment's contemplation will tell you. Do you really think that I said it's all right about the hanging of someone when I'm against the death penalty in any country for anything at any time? Do you really think I said it's all right that they hang somebody in public? Think what you're saying, young man, before you publicly smear people in this way. Now look, what you just said about Venezuela is so far from the truth. I have to imagine you wandered in here. You're not really a student at Oxford University. You cannot be a student at Oxford University and say what you just said about Venezuela. Hugo Chavez is the most elected politician on the earth. On the earth. He has won more free and fair elections than any politician on the earth. You spoke, let me answer you. Who said so? Jimmy Carter, last week. Last week, Jimmy Carter, that well-known Islamist revolutionist, homophobic, misogynistic tyrant, Jimmy Carter described last week's election, which I witnessed and you did not, as the most perfect election he has ever observed, better than any election ever held in the United States. That's what Jimmy Carter said, not me. Hugo Chavez won a landslide victory against 30 opposition parties. You said that Chavez doesn't allow opposition. 30 opposition parties combined to put up one presidential candidate. You said Capriles was never given one television interview. Capriles was never off the television. I was watching him with my own eyes, day in, day out, all the time I was in Venezuela. Don't shake your head. You're talking nonsense. 95% of the television stations in Venezuela are privately owned and supported Capriles. Me and my wife were on the demonstration of hundreds of thousands of opposition supporters supporting Capriles' election campaign. Just last week, you're talking nonsense. Capriles himself has acknowledged that he was defeated in a free and fair election. I've heard of being more Catholic than the Pope. You're more Capriles than Capriles. It's utterly absurd what you're saying. Utterly absurd. And it's a disgrace that you feel that you can say these things with so little knowledge of the true facts. Rich people in Venezuela hate Hugo Chavez because Hugo Chavez has utterly transformed the lot of the poor masses in Venezuela, which is why he keeps getting re-elected. Poverty has been reduced by 75% in the 14 years that Chavez has been in power. He's built 22 universities, making Venezuela the 5th largest student body in the world, in a country of just 26 million people. 98% of Venezuelans now eat 3 meals a day, when nobody even counted how many, because it wouldn't have been worth doing how many ate 3 times a day before the Venezuelan Revolution. Chavez is regarded by the majority of thinking people in the world as one of the great leaders of the Third World. And you should be identifying with him. If you're a champion of gay rights, do you think fascism in Venezuela was a better friend for gay rights than Hugo Chavez? Chavez has freed the gay people in Venezuela. Gay people were out marching in huge numbers for Chavez in Venezuela. Women were out marching in huge numbers for Chavez in Venezuela. He's a champion of women's rights, a champion of black people, a champion of the indigenous people. That's why they all voted for him.